It all began on a beautiful spring morning in Whistler, a small mountain village in British Columbia, Canada. Nick Lortz sat outside a cafe, finishing his breakfast and enjoying the warm sunshine. He was a travel writer working on a book about North American mountains, and he felt perfectly content. The waiter brought more coffee and noticed Nick's camera. They chatted about his work, and then the waiter mentioned something strange. A young woman across the street was watching Nick very carefully. Nick turned to look. She was about 25 and quite attractive, but she seemed anxious, constantly glancing around as if waiting for someone. Suddenly, the woman smiled, walked over, and sat down at Nick's table. She introduced herself as Jen and claimed they had met at a party in Toronto. Nick knew this was untrue, since he rarely attended parties and had never been to one in Toronto. But it was a lovely morning and she was charming, so he offered her coffee anyway. As they talked, Nick noticed her bag was half open. Inside, he glimpsed a letter mentioning the Empress Hotel in Victoria, Vancouver Island. The woman seemed distracted, constantly looking across the street at a tall, thin man in his 60s with distinctive white hair. When Nick asked if she was waiting for someone, she quickly denied it. Then, without warning, she took his face in her hands, kissed him on the lips, and whispered goodbye, calling him Mr. Hollywood. She smiled brilliantly and disappeared into a nearby hotel. Nick sat there, confused. The man with white hair watched carefully, then followed Nick when he left the cafe. That evening in Vancouver, Nick couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious woman. After dinner, he walked through the busy streets of Gasthof. As he waited to cross a road with a small crowd, someone suddenly pushed him hard from behind. He fell directly in front of a moving car that stopped just inches from his head. A woman in a blue dress helped him up, but when Nick looked around, he saw the man with white hair hurrying away through the crowd. Back at his hotel, Nick tried to convince himself it was an accident, but he couldn't sleep. While flipping through a magazine, he discovered the truth. There was a photograph of the mysterious woman with an older man in front of an expensive mansion. The caption identified them as millionaire Howard Hudson and his daughter, Mac. The woman wasn't Jen at all. She was the daughter of one of Canada's wealthiest men. The next afternoon, while walking in Stanley Park, Nick heard gunshots. Bullets hit the trees around him. He ran desperately through the forest, hearing footsteps behind him. Eventually, he reached his car and found a note on the windshield that read, "I am going to kill you, Mr. Hollywood." At the police station, a tired officer listened to his story, but offered no help. There were too many people with guns in the city, and Nick had no real evidence. Frustrated and frightened, Nick returned to his hotel and asked about guests with white hair. The desk clerk mentioned someone named Mr. Wickers, but before Nick could get more information, the man disappeared into the crowd. Nick remembered the letter he had seen in Mac's bag. It mentioned meeting at the Empress Hotel in Victoria on Friday afternoon. The next day was Friday. He decided to go there and find answers. On the ferry to Vancouver Island, Nick searched for Wickers but couldn't find him. He drove to Victoria and went straight to the Empress Hotel. The desk clerk told him Mac Hudson wasn't staying there but had been seen earlier in the tea room with a man. Nick found Mac sitting with a handsome young man in his 30s, wearing white clothes and expensive shoes. When Nick approached, calling her mystery girl, Mac's face turned red with embarrassment. The man with her was named Winters, and Mac quickly explained everything. Her wealthy father disapproved of Winters and had forbidden her from seeing him. She believed her father had hired the detective with white hair to follow her and prevent their relationship. In Whistler, she had deliberately called Nick Mr. Hollywood so the detective would follow him instead of her, giving her time to meet Winters secretly. Nick was furious. He told them about being pushed in front of a car and shot at in the park. When he mentioned the name Wickers, Winters' face went completely pale. He realized this wasn't just a detective following Mac. There was something far more dangerous happening. Before Winters could explain why he feared Wickers so desperately, Mac gasped and pointed toward the entrance. There, standing by the door of the tea room, was the tall man with white hair. His hand moved slowly toward his pocket, where something cold and hard was waiting. The peaceful afternoon was about to shatter, and Nick finally understood that he had walked straight into the middle of something deadly, something that had nothing to do with him at all, but everything to do with the terrified man sitting across from him.